Ricky lived a simple life, working at the local bakery. He enjoyed his routines and his small apartment. Life wasn't exciting, but it was good. Little did he know, darkness was creeping in. It started subtly, a flicker, a scratching sound. Ricky dismissed it, but the feeling persisted. One evening he saw it, an enormous spider. This was no ordinary spider. It was something evil. Ricky's breath caught as he stared at the monstrous spider. It radiated danger, feeding off his fear. With effort, Ricky broke free. Startling the spider, it regained its footing, its gaze full of malice. Ricky stumbled back, trapped by the spider. He hurled a book, but it didn't slow the creature. Panic set in as the spider reared up, venom dripping. Ricky knew one bite would be the end. Ricky shouted, throwing a book at the spider. Desperation drove him to the door, but it was jammed. The spider loomed, its fangs glistening. Ricky braced for the inevitable, but the pain never came. Ricky cautiously opened his eyes. The spider was gone. It lurked under the coffee table, watching him. He had to leave, but a sharp pain shot through his head. What was happening? The pain intensified, and Ricky saw the spider emerge. It moved slowly, savoring his torment. Ricky knew it was ancient and evil inside his head. He had to fight back, but how? Ricky grabbed a vase, aiming to kill the spider. The vase shattered, but the spider lived, staring at him. Its eyes burned with rage. Ricky's heart seized in his chest. The spider lunged, its fangs buried in Ricky's arm. Venom coursed through his veins, taking control. Ricky's vision blurred, his thoughts chaotic. The spider's eyes gleamed with triumph. The pain in Ricky's head was unbearable. The spider detached, watching him collapse. Ricky's thoughts dissolved. The spider's venom taking over. The last thing he saw was the spider crawling into his ear. Ricky lay convulsing as the spider wove its web. His identity unraveled, the spider's control complete. Ricky's struggles ceased, his breathing mechanical. The spider had won. Whispers slithered through Ricky's mind. The spider controlled him, making him move. Ricky's memories and emotions were laid bare. The man who loved fresh bread was gone, replaced by something inhuman. The transformation was subtle at first, a flicker of unease in Ricky's eyes, a moment of disorientation. But as the spider tightened its grip, the changes became more pronounced. Ricky's once warm demeanor grew cold and distant. He stopped smiling at his neighbors. He moved through the world with a haunted, vacant look. At the bakery, his co-workers noticed the change. Ricky became withdrawn and erratic. He made mistakes he had never made before. The aroma of baking bread now filled him with dread. The spider delighted in Ricky's growing isolation. It whispered to him, feeding him paranoia and suspicion. It urged him to shun human contact, to embrace the darkness. Ricky retreated further into himself. He became a ghost, haunting the edges of his own life. Section 4, The Puppet Master. The spider reveled in its dominion over Ricky's body. It moved him like a puppet, pulling at his limbs, contorting his face into expressions of mock joy and simmering rage. The once vibrant baker was now a hollow shell, his eyes vacant and distant, his movements jerky and unnatural. The spider, its hunger for control insatiable, began to explore the world through Ricky's senses. It tasted the bitterness of Ricky's neglected coffee, felt the rough texture of his unshaven cheek. It saw the world through Ricky's eyes, the once familiar streets now distorted and menacing, the faces of strangers twisted into grotesque masks of suspicion. The spider, driven by its own alien instincts, began to weave a new purpose for Ricky, a purpose far removed from the simple pleasures of his former life. It whispered to him of shadows and secrets, of hidden pathways and forgotten rituals. It spoke of a hunger that could never be satisfied, a thirst that could never be quenched. Ricky, his mind a shattered mirror reflecting the spider's will, obeyed without question. He became a stranger to himself, his actions driven by a force he could neither understand nor control. The spider, the puppet master, had found its perfect puppet, a hollow vessel through which to enact its dark and unknowable will upon the world. Section 1. A change in diet. Ricky's reflection in the mirror was becoming increasingly unfamiliar. His once warm brown eyes now held a chilling, vacant stare. His skin, once tanned from hours spent delivering bread in the morning sun, had taken on a sickly pallor. But it was the change in his diet that truly horrified him. Gone was his appetite for the warm, comforting foods he used to enjoy. The smell of baking bread, once so enticing, now made his stomach churn. He couldn't bring himself to touch the pastries he used to devour with childlike glee. In their place, a new craving took root, a primal urge for something different. It started subtly, a strange fascination with the flies buzzing around the overripe fruit in his kitchen, a morbid curiosity about the spider webs gathering dust in the corners of his apartment. Then, one horrifying evening, he found himself catching a fly out of mid-air, its fragile wings brushing against his palm before he popped it into his mouth. The revulsion he expected never came. Instead, a strange satisfaction settled in his stomach, a feeling akin to the comfort he once found in a warm croissant. His reflection in the mirror seemed to approve, a grotesque parody of a smile twisting his lips. The spider was pleased. Section 2. Unnatural Cravings. As the days passed, Ricky's cravings intensified, growing bolder and more disturbing. He found himself drawn to the dark, damp corners of the city, places where insects thrived. He would spend hours crouched in alleyways, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity as he watched spiders spin their intricate webs, their delicate legs moving with an elegance he found strangely hypnotic. The people around him noticed his transformation. His co-workers at the bakery exchanged worried glances as he picked at his food, his gaze darting around the room as if searching for something unseen. His neighbors, once accustomed to his friendly greetings, now hurried past his door, their faces etched with a mixture of pity and disgust. Ricky, however, was oblivious to their concerns. He was consumed by the spider's insatiable hunger, his own humanity fading with each passing day. He no longer recognized himself in the mirror. The creature staring back at him was a stranger, its eyes cold and calculating, its movements sharp and predatory. The spider, its hold on Ricky's mind tightening, reveled in his growing depravity. It whispered to him of a world beyond human comprehension, a world ruled by instinct and appetite, where survival was the only law. And Ricky, his will completely subverted, embraced this new reality with chilling enthusiasm. The spider's control over Ricky was absolute, isolating him further, severing the threads to his former life. It whispered paranoia, painting friends and family as threats. Ricky retreated deeper into isolation. He stopped answering his phone, ignored knocks and concerned voices. Barricaded in his apartment, his only companions were insects in jars. The apartment became a grotesque reflection of his psyche. Cobwebs draped the furniture, shimmering in dim light. The air hung heavy with decay. The floor littered with exoskeletons. Ricky, emaciated, moved like a wraith, eyes burning with unholy light. Fear became Ricky's constant companion. He feared the spider, its presence suffocating his soul. He feared the outside world, now distorted and menacing. Most of all, he feared the reflection in the mirror, a monstrous stranger wearing his face. One evening, amidst the growing chaos of his apartment, a flicker of Ricky's former self resurfaced. As he was organizing his insect collection, his gaze fell upon a framed photograph. It was a picture of him and his childhood dog, Sparky. A wave of longing washed over Ricky, a painful ache in his chest. The image of Sparky sparked a flicker of resistance in Ricky's mind. He stared at the photograph, his vision blurring with unshed tears. A single tear rolled down Ricky's cheek. The image of Sparky remained, a beacon of light in the darkness. The spider, sensing a shift in the balance of power, unleashed its full fury upon Ricky's fractured mind. Images of spiders, monstrous and grotesque, flooded his vision. Ricky screamed a primal sound of terror and agony as he thrashed against the invisible web that bound him. Ricky clung to the image of his beloved dog, a lifeline in a sea of madness. Driven by a surge of desperate hope, Ricky stumbled to his feet. He had to reclaim his mind, his life, from the creature that held him captive. As Ricky stood there, trembling and uncertain, his gaze fell upon a forgotten object on his bookshelf, a small silver tuning fork, a relic from his days playing in the school orchestra. He had always been drawn to its pure, resonant tone, a sound that seemed to calm his nerves, to clear his mind. Could it be? Could a simple sound, a vibration of metal, possibly penetrate the spider's web of control? He had to try. He had to do something, anything, to break free from the nightmare that had become his life. With trembling hands, Ricky reached for the tuning fork, its cool surface a stark contrast to the burning sensation that now coursed through his veins. The spider, sensing danger, thrashed within his skull, sending a wave of nausea and dizziness through him. But Ricky held firm, his resolve strengthened by a flicker of defiance he hadn't felt in what seemed like an eternity. He raised the tuning fork to his ear, its silver surface catching the dim light filtering through the grimy window. Closing his eyes, he took a deep breath and struck the tuning fork against the edge of the bookshelf. The sound that rang out was clear, pure, almost painfully sharp in the oppressive silence of the apartment. And within Ricky's mind, a battle began. The sound of the tuning fork reverberated through Ricky's skull, each vibration a tiny hammer blow against the spider's hold on his mind. He cried out a raw, guttural sound as the spider thrashed within his ear canal. The room around him snapped back into focus. The cobwebs seemed to recede. With a final, ear-splitting shriek, the spider was expelled from Ricky's ear. It landed on the floor with a sickening thud. Ricky stared down at the creature, a mixture of revulsion and relief washing over him. He was free.